Hi everyone. In this lecture, we will look at how we can get data from the sheets. So it's a continuation of the previous lecture, but we will look at it in a little more detail. So the first thing that I want to do is to put some data in our worksheet. So we have the same data that we had done earlier. So we have three names. We have the sales. Let me also change these numbers. And we have the profit. What we want to do here is to calculate the row totals. So let's create a function called calculate row totals. First, we have to get the spreadsheet object and the sheet. We have already seen how to do that. We can take spreadsheet app dot get active spreadsheet, and then we can say that sheet 1 is equal to ss dot get sheet by name, and we can write the sheet name here, which is sheet 1 in our case. Okay, now let's get the data. So data, and we can say sheet 1 dot get range. And what we want to do here is to start on the second row. We don't want to take the headings. That means that we want to start at the second row and the first column. So that would be 2 comma 1. And we want to take three rows, three columns and three rows. So that would be 3 comma 3 dot get values. Let's see the result that we get. So if we say console log data, let me select my correct function as well. And let's run this. As you can see, we get the data except the headings, which we did not want in this case. Okay. Now we can loop over the data and perform our calculation. So let's say data dot for each, and then we can say row and then we have console dot log for our row. If I stop at this point, let's see what happens. So you notice that it gives me Habish 115, Anmol 310, and Talha 425. So it's essentially creating, it's looking at each array within the main array. So it's looking at array 1, 2, and 3 and is giving us the result. What we want to do next is to give a name, and we want to say that constant name is equal to row 0, and then we have constant cost is equal to, just a moment, let me just check what we've written. So sales and profit. So we have names, and then we have sales, which would be row 1, and then finally we have the profit, which would be the second item. And then we can say the total, or rather the profit margin, is equal to nothing but the profit divided by the sales amount. And then we can do a console.log where I want to take the name and I want to add the profit margin that we have calculated. Let's see the result. So let me save it and run it. Now what happens here is that okay, it says that name is not defined. Okay, this should be names. Let's run it once again. Okay, let's try to understand what is happening. So the first console log is giving us the entire data, which we have here. So all the three rows. After that, we said for each, which means that we are showing only the first row, then the second row, and then the third row. And since we want to find the profit margin, which is nothing but profit divided by sales, that would be 15 divided by 100, which is 0.15, 10 divided by 300, that is 0.03, and then 25 divided by 400, that is 0.0625. We might want to add a space here, so I'll just add a space like this so that our result looks a little cleaner. And we can see the result looks like this now. Now let us also see how this data can be sent back to the worksheet. So let's add another function, which is to add the row totals. So we have, we start the same way, which is to take the active spreadsheet and then sheet one. But this time I'm going to show you something new, which is how to find the last row. So we can simply say sheet one dot get last row, and let me show you with the console log what the result would be. Let's see. So let me save it, and we will select add row totals, and let's run this. So you can see the result comes as 4, which means that fourth row has the last value in it. As an example, if I had written 56 here and I run it one more time, now it tells me 7, which means that the last row with a value in it is the 7th row. Right? Now this is why we have done this, is because we wanted to make this dynamic. So we will say that our data is sheet1 dot get range 1 comma 1. Now how many rows do we want? Rather than writing the number, we can write last row, since we want to find that dynamically. The number of columns we know in this case is 3, so we can put that, but otherwise we could have written last column as well. And we will say get values. Let's verify what the data will be. So console log and data, and when we run this, you can see that it gives us the complete data for the 4 rows like this. Next, we want to remove the header row. So we will say data.shift, and then we have console log data. Let's see what happens. You can see that the header has been removed when we do this. Now we want to create our profit margin. So we will say constant, and I will write profit margin, and this profit margin array is equal to a blank array right now. So then we say data for each row, and then we will create constant for our names, which is equal to row 0, and let me copy it two more times. So we have row 1 and row 2. The second one will be the profit value, and then we have the sales value. No, so we first have the sales value, and then we have the profit value. Now we can create a new constant, which will be the profit margin, and I will say that my profit margin is equal to nothing but profit divided by the sales amount. And now we can say profit margin array dot push, and in this we can write our profit margin like this. So what we are doing here is we are taking sales and we are taking profit, we are doing a multiplication, and we are pushing all that data, which are the calculations, into the profit margin array like this. So let's do a console log and see what the result is. So when I do console log of the profit margin array, and let's run this, you can see that first we have the entire data, then we remove the header, and this everyone is the calculation, which I've already shown to you earlier, right? So if you remember from the previous function, what we are doing here is we are dividing 15 by 100, 10 by 300, and 25 by 400. So the results are 0.15, 0.03, and 0.06. And the final thing that we want to do is to paste data back into the sheet. So we say sheet1 dot get range. Then we will say 2 comma 4. That means the second row and the fourth column. And then we will write last row, which I'm not able to get. So let me just quickly check. Okay. So I should not have closed this before. This will come after. So we say last row minus 1, and then we say 1 dot set values. So far we were using get values. Now we are using set values. And here we want to put our profit margin array. Let's see what the result is. So when I run this, and we come back, you can see that the three values have come here. Very cool, right? So what we have done here is we have taken the spreadsheet, we have taken the specific sheet, we have taken the last row dynamically, then we have said that from the first row and the first column, go to the last row and the third column. Get all the values that is saved in data. Then we are shifting it so that the headers get removed. We are creating a blank array, and then in the array we are doing a calculation which is profit by sales, and then we are setting that value, or rather the list of values in the array, in the second row, the fourth column, and the last row minus 1. We are doing the last row minus 1 because there are only 3 rows that we have, right? So please make sure to practice this a few times. This is very important because you would want to also see, once you get the values, how you will push it back into the sheet. In the next lecture, we will look at adding custom menus that will help us run our programs.